and basics of what we call best practices of starting projects in Workamajig. And of course, you've all been through college courses 101, meaning it's the beginning steps. We're not going to get into real fancy workflows today, but I want to make sure you're here to get in and learn the best practices of how to begin projects in Workamajig. And even if you've opened 100 or more projects already, you may always come away with hopefully a little bit of new knowledge today. So I'm Leslie French, your an account manager here at Workamajig. I've been with Workamajig now for the last 9 going on 10 years already. So it has been a wonderful process myself as a trainer, even learning best practices, because you learn the basics and then you learn what your basics in Workamajig look like and how you need to evolve and make it work even better for you. So hopefully you'll take away some nuggets of good information today to help that be accomplished. So you've been on webinars before. Let me know by a text message in the chat bar if you can hear me. Maybe a couple of you might say yes or no. If you say no, I guess you're still telling me yes. Make sure you can all hear me. I'm ready to get started, so I appreciate that. And I do see a text message coming over chat. So thank you. Speaking of chat, I am, it says it's disabled. Oh, actually, interesting. Chat is disabled, but we can hear you. I have not had that happen before. Do you have a Q&A? Let's kind of I did say that is the Q&A. Try the chat feature. Oh, you're saying it's not working. I have not had that. So your text through Q&A is working. So that works for me as well. That is great. I'm not going to be able to type any answers in the Q&A, but I can certainly see your questions. I guess that was just helping us for webinars. I had not been on it since they've updated. There was both options, and it's like, where do you look? So we're sticking with the Q&A, and now I know, and so do you. All right, well, let's get to going. We're already burned here through 2 minutes. We're going to talk about the best practices. So let me go ahead and share screen. I noticed I'm still on the black little squiggly face there. We are going to talk about how to copy from a template to start with in project workflows. We're going to go over what that means with templates. We're going to also cover how to create an estimate based on the schedule that we're going to show you how to put in Workamajig and your assignments. We're going to also cover how the best practices of setting up your project team and the reasons we go into assigning users to tasks on that project. So those are the main bullet points. I've just pointed here to the basic support guide so that we had something to start with today. I've already logged in, so I'm going to go in and log in on my system here. Just landing on a good page, especially if you're a project manager, this Today Project Manager page will be a great place to start your day. And so we're going to come into more reviews on this page, but momentarily we're going to start talking first about those templates and how do we set them up and some basic parts around those templates. So for a few moments here, we're going to spend a few moments on the setup needs of templates and other areas in the system. Now, if you don't have access to all of the system setups, you may not see as many of the same bubbles as I do, but we do need to go into the basics of what your Workamajig admins have most likely already set up, and that's in the admin manager. If you're part of that new administrative team, this is where you would go to maybe modify and update certain things. I'm going to click on System Setup, and we're going to briefly talk about the global lists in the system and what you find here. First of all, we're going to talk about the project types in our system. You came equipped with a basic list that we provided, but certainly your project types may vary. So anything in here that if you need to relabel it, you certainly can click in there, relabel something. It's just basically a project listing of the types of projects that you guys be working on. And we're going to find a way that you can do even some quick reporting around project types. That's why we feel that they're really necessary, is it's going to give you quick references of whatever the project is that you're working on. What is it really? Because we know those project names can get kind of really interesting, but also we can report on how many projects we're doing of certain types. So the word active here is just basically, are we using this project type? And if we find that we're not ever doing TV spots, for example, you can just simply click in there and mark it as no, which would remove that as one of your project types that you're offering and using in the system. I'm going to leave mine active for now. You can colorize project types. I don't get hung up on color. Right now it's just defaulting. If I've clicked in here at all, it'll default to the zeros, which I think are all black, but you can get real fancy with your project type color if you would like so. You can also fuss with project next number in project types, but believe me, that is more management than you really need to worry about today. If you need more, the last thing I'll show you here is just insert that row and add additional types. If, by the way, you go in and relabel something, especially if you've been in the system a while, you will change the name of where that label was in history. So just be aware at this point, if you've been in the system at any length of time, better to make it inactive and add a new one than to relabel these. If you're brand new, feel free. Go ahead and relabel what you'd like there. If, by the way, you've made some inactive, you can always hit that show inactive so that you, I guess I haven't, you'll see your inactive ones. Okay, so that's project types. Moving on from that, the project types is there. I'm going to come back to templates, but we're going to go back up one more here to project status codes, because we will be using a bit of discussion around project status codes. And really the only purpose of a project status code is to tell the system what you consider as actively working or not active projects. We call it a code of whatever we want to call it. Estimating, for example, it's active in that we're using that status code, but the project is active, yes or no. And we have a lot of people who do a lot of things differently in Workamajig, but our basics was estimating. We're starting a project, we're figuring it out, we're getting estimates figured out, we're maybe thinking who's available for our team. We're not ready to really push go on the project time frame. So that's why we say project is active, no. But you can decide with these settings, are we allowed to add time entries? That's up to you all. You can certainly change that to a yes, and certainly that easy, and allow expenses, etc. So you see, I've got basic status codes. Estimating, we've just talked about. In production, we think of that as go. I've had some people call it that. Some people call it working. Whatever you want to call a project status is up to you, but what it means is what you tell the system here. So estimating in production, then we get to completed, and we do want you to complete your projects and mark them then when they're actually completed. Because if you keep everything active, and I only have one active status, I might change my mind on that and maybe make two active. But I have seen some systems, some clients of mine who have 5 or 6 active projects. And guess what? They start having some slowness when they get to their projects page, because that's a ton of stuff. And you can always find things whether they're active or not. So don't let that be a worry for you. So project status, just as a review, it's just to make sure that you can tell the system and your team, is it an active being worked on project, and or is it not, and kind of what status it's in, and we'll help with that. Okay, then let's move on to the project number. I'm going to skip over to the project number before I show you templates. And that is going to already be predetermined as a default unless you guys have changed it. And it's in your transaction preferences under projects. And our basic numbering that most clients love is our prefix, which could represent your calendar year. And their client ID would come next. And then a next number from client or the next number from the system, global system settings, meaning your total group of clients, 1, 2, 3, 4 doesn't repeat because it's by a global setting. So all kinds of options on project number. You kind of pick a normal workflow that's good for you. It's already probably been decided, but that's where it comes from, and it's going to be an automatic numbering for you. There's other things you can do in this area. We're not going to cover all of that, but notice that you can require that project type that we just discussed. I think it's a good setting, especially if you're using or want to report on project types, but a required does mean you can't forget to mark it. So I'm going to make mine required today. Okay, and then basic other things. Who's your default account managers, etc. And if you're using both account managers, project managers, not everybody does everything the same, but that's why we do give those transaction preferences for you to look at. We are going to move back now into one other area, and that is because we're going to talk about it in templates, which is what we do in the projects, or what roles you're providing are your services. And if you haven't ever looked at this list before, mine will vary from yours. And I've modified the report so that I can see a lot more information. But it's basically, what are you calling yourselves? What role are you providing on the project that you're going to be setting up? Are you, do you have that account management, the art direction, services like creative direction? People call them roles. We call them services in Workamajig, just for vocabulary 101 right there. Not to worry about the rest, but notice you would have control on what you would normally bill for that service. Billing discussion we'll get into on another day, but those are basically where things come from when we set up our templates, are those services or the roles that we need to provide on the project. And lastly, we are now going to go back up to global list. If you already are in the system setup, if you have this access, you can go from the global list to get to your project templates. I'm going to show you here, but I'm going to close it out because not everyone has system set up, and I don't want to make you think you can't talk about this area. If you're a project manager, you have the project manager bubble, or should, and you may have all of these bubbles, or you may have a select few of them, but hopefully you certainly have projects, and we're going to go there next. Now, as a description of this page, this should only be your active projects. Project status you see on mine in production. Oh, look at me. I do have another one that's considered in action. It's called web active. Yes, I've been playing with a few different options there, but that should be, as a default, it's going to be your active projects, just so you know that we're not trying to see everything here. If you've been experiencing any slowness, we always want to have you look at your display choices, because by default, if you don't do any filtering, you're going to only see active projects. It's going to pull in whatever status is considered active. You can filter and get more in here, but if you've done that, like I've seen 5, 10 different filtering things happening, you may slow down the results here. The main point is you want to see what you're getting into, what you've set up, where they are. And I have a lot of testing going on. Mine is just all pretend data that I have to explore and play with and make sure I know what it would do for certain scenarios. I never update them. I'm way behind your project 2013 ago. I haven't yet closed, so don't judge me too harshly. All right, and of course you can always make your favorites. I'm not here to show you this page as much as I want to go into the ... more. Because in the ... more on your projects here is where you will see project templates. With me so far, I hope. So what is our goal today is, how do we start projects? Well, we know our best practices are, we recommend that you start by copying from a template. Let me give you an example of what you do probably before you ever started the job you're in. You probably had to fill out a resume. And if you're like me, I don't like to format my own resumes. what's the best process, right? And I look for templates, and I would copy an updated template for my resume. Well, that's what we mean with projects. What are the type of common project types you might be working on? A template would focus on that type. Hey, we're doing some brochures, or we're doing some events, or we're doing a print and web ad. Whatever type you're looking for, those are the templates that we have here. Now, we gave you a standard workflow. Your workflow will always vary depending on your needs. So these are very customizable, and we certainly can add a new one, which we'll do momentarily. But I wanted to show you just a couple examples of templates that have already been created or I've played with and tried myself. And you'll see like an agile schedule here where everything kind of is fluid. It starts all at the same time, runs the whole gamut of the project, and we can have all of these tasks running at the same time. We're going to talk about the days, the importance of it, the assigned, what we mean by that. And if you don't see a Gantt chart, it's only because you have this closed. In your Gantt chart, if you've got days in your task, you will see some duration. On this template, we're not worrying about dates. We're looking more on the workflow. So please ignore the actual dates, although they're very helpful when we get there into the project. So that's one example. We may even have a project called admin. We use those for people who need to record 40 hours a week, for example, in the system. So here's an example of an admin project. That workflow would not even be necessarily existent. It would be based on that project start and due, and maybe the duration of the project. So you're very welcome to look through the templates you already have, and maybe you've already explored creating some generalized ones or very specific ones. I've got many different examples. I'm going to quickly kind of peek at these so you get the idea of if you've already got the Gantt chart showing what kind of workflows. You see some tasks can be starting all at the same time, and others are waiting for tasks prior to those with the predecessors. I'm going to point out my holidays coming up. Hopefully you will start to see yours popping in your calendar, in your Gantt view, in your staff schedule, and that comes from our calendar settings. I can go over how that's set later. But right now, if you don't see those black bars, the system would assume you're working on the 14th. I think that's like Labor or Veterans Day, and then we've got Thanksgiving coming up here in the States, right? So those would block out your working days, just like the weekends are blocked out. And let's quickly look at one more. One task. Simply, you could have one task in the system. I just need to open a project. Maybe it's a monthly report that I rinse and repeat, and that could be a quick, easy, hey, I've got the one task, and then when I'm ready, I might duplicate the several different tasks when I get into the project. So your templates are just there to help design and get those projects started quickly. Okay, I'm going to pause for a moment to see if there are any questions. How do you mark a project as a favorite? Thank you for that question. We will look at that here momentarily. So yeah, let me just back out of templates for the moment, because I might as well be back here. If we've got a project and we have some marked as favorites, you notice that over here, there's kind of a look and weirdness over here, but it gives you a good little favorite view. And how did they get memorized or favorized? I guess that's a word. Whatever project you want to favorite, you're in there, you open it, and here's your star. That's all you got to do. And it can be undone just as simply. Okay, so you can change your mind next month as you need to make something more in front of your face, easy to find. Also, though, you can certainly find a type of project by doing a quick search. Okay, so by client name, and I'm going to be doing some looks here at a project coming up. So before I even get into oh no, I'm going to jump the gun. So let's get into what we're here for. Let's create the template. And then once we're ready, I want to show you an existing project just for some historic sense of where we're headed. So under your projects, more, Your view may vary. You might not have the ability to do some of this. You may not see system settings. What you do certainly want are your display options, of course, of what you need to see on this page. But did you notice, and I just went right past it, more, there was our templates right above it. So everyone that's a project manager should be able to view and maybe even create your own templates. If you do not see when you click on project templates, the plus, then you need to check with your admin user or users and say, hey, I need to create a template. Need to check the security rights, and they can help you with that, or certainly send us questions anytime you can. Find the help that you need or don't know how to get to that help at support@workamajig.com. Many of you already know that. All right, so we're going to click on the new project template. Now there are required dots and I have to put in the ID. So I'm going to just create something real quick. With an ID. Remember, if you've ever done IDs before, they have to be unique. They're just needing to be abbreviated, shortcuts, no spaces or special characters, but the name can be whatever you need it to be called. So I use the what type it is in my name for a template because this is not the project name. Really, it's the template name. Sure, basic I might be wanting to do. Now I can copy from a template to create a template, but we're not going to do that today. I have other requirements. I have GL company set up, so I need to pick what GL company I'm using. And the description, if you need to, would copy into your project that you copy this from. So if you want to fill in a test description, this can become very robust. And do you need it at the template level? Maybe, maybe not, but that certainly is doable if you need to use that. And my project type doesn't look like it's required, but I bet it will be. I just didn't refresh after my setting. So what type of project is your template? Again, go and grab it now. If you realize when you get here, you don't have the right project type to grab, then you know where to go now to add it in, save it, and then come back in here and use it. Now, some of my clients, many, and I've explored some options, use custom fields in their projects. That will come in your template. You can leave it blank for the fact that it's more for your project, not your template. So once you have your basics, your ID, your brochure basic, or your name, I'm sorry, of the template, your jail company if need be, and the project type picked, you're ready to go ahead and hit save. Okay. Once you hit save, you've gotten into the basics. It almost looks like a project. It really is not. It's just the required shell of the project parts that we need. And one will be the schedule we'll look at. But before we go there, we're going to just address project settings. As a template, if you've got many you want to get rid of, you say, oh, this schedule is crummy and we don't do it anymore that way, or never did. What were they thinking? You can uncheck active. You may want to do that instead of going up into the way to delete, which I can show you, but it's not in this window. Also notice by default, we're assuming that you're working the work weeks. If you never work Friday, uncheck it. It will then not schedule you to work on Fridays, but typically, except on summer, maybe summer Fridays, you're working those weekdays. Again, holidays will be skipped with the calendar setting. If a project type always works Saturdays, do that in your template. You'll do your team a favor, but that means everything could work on a Saturday. So that still may not be a good setting. We assume that's a basic default. Again, best practices. Our start date in a template does not matter. So don't worry about what that shows up. I just happened to update mine today. But when you we look at the old ones in there, maybe from 2012 or before you were even there. So don't worry about that in templates, and because it all will update to your project. So the main parts there I wanted to point out was in that project setting. If you want to delete, if you're especially new, you can go to more and you can delete the template. But if it's ever been used, it probably will error at you. And if you're not sure, I always say there's nothing you can get back if you delete it. So if in doubt, go to project settings and make it inactive. Maybe it's not quite ready for your team and you want to just make it inactive temporarily. That will be how you do it. Say, gosh, we're going to use it, but it's not ready. That would be a good thing to do so people don't copy over problems. Okay, we're going to say that project setting has been looked at. And we're going to look at the template in our, I'm sorry, the schedule in our template. Now you go, well, there's nothing there. And that is right. This is one I just started and I need to actually create the schedule at this point. Now you certainly can add a task one line at a time. I'm going to just quickly do that. I'm going to add in, of course, the first one would be maybe some concepting or concept sorts of the things that we need to do in a brochure is plan and bring the decision of what we're working on. So we're calling it concept or brainstorming or whatever your mileage may be. I'm going to leave the day here at 1 for a purpose I'll show you in a moment. Now, again, I show my Gantt chart because I've been on there before. It remembered that. You may want to just turn it off for now, just because you'll see other things across the top here that we're going to talk about. Now, certainly insert one row at a time if you like that idea, but maybe you already have some pre-existing templates in the system. You can actually go and use this insert template. If I hadn't already started a task, you had to click right in the middle, copy from a template. Either way, this middle box will give it to you. And here we got a whole list of a bunch of our templates. Now this one I didn't show you, but it has like every possible, let's collapse them, kind of phases that you might want to bring over. Well, here's that creative concepting. Maybe I want a bucket, not just a single task. I'm going to bring it up and probably pop it at the top of the screen. And it did some good work for me already because I'm copying from existing templates. Now I could go and just open up the grouping and I could say, you know what, we need an internal review. I don't need that whole copy thing, but I'm going to carefully drop it over where I think it belongs. So be careful when you drop or copy, bring over groups, kind of watch for that blue line where you saw it drop. But do notice what the advantage of this is. Do I need the full grouping or phase, or do I just need a single line or two? And certainly you can go and search for other kinds of things. Hey, I need something from my media for whatever reason. And if we don't have it, I guess that wasn't a good search. But you get the idea that you can search. And if you don't see something, it may need that kind of keyword for you to find it, because there might be so much in your system it needs a little help to find it. And there you go. So pull over what you want to copy from. You will have some good things already coming across. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to recommend you save often, because if you get to moving quick, how many of you are quick workers? I know I'm working slowly intentionally, but you probably pop it over, grab it, add it, say, forget to even save. Before you know it, you might be dragging things up and down, which you certainly can do. And before you know it, if you haven't saved and you've made a bit of a hook or problem, or your browser went on a blip, you may find you've lost some traction. So if you're feeling good, save as you go. Okay, so I did that internal review. You noticed I dragged it up and now it went under my creative concepting, and I don't want it there. I can certainly highlight over this line and see the 3 dots and go, hey, I want this moved out all by itself. Okay, so that's some basic hints on how to work with the schedule. Move a task out. If you want to move it in again, you certainly can, and then it becomes part of a subgroup. Leave mine out. And certainly you can just insert a row, and if it's already out, it will maybe just need to be pushed in. So let me just push this one in. Probably, yeah, I have a little problem. I've just made myself, I promised myself I wouldn't do that, because what I did is probably not fully did something. So let me call it, meeting. client meeting or kickoff or something. And once I get that in there, I'm going to check one other setting to make sure everything is good and kosher. And yeah, before I do a lot of work on my schedule, do I need to move a task in? Track budget settings. Well, we know that we want it and say we do want to push it in. And it's because concepting has already got track budgets, and we're going to move it in now. Before it would do that for me and ask me a question. I think that's been a recent update because I now have to know how to make that change. What I just did, wanted a little more in the weeds than I wanted to go, but track budgets is what we do at the subtask. And if I wanted to not make concepting my main task, but instead a phase or a grouping of sorts, then I want to have subtasks underneath and they get pushed in. And it was squawking at me because it was saying you can't track budgets if you want to have subtasks. You have to track budgets at the subtask level, which is what we expect you're going to do because you're doing the kickoff meeting here, and then you're going to do some creative or production, you know, so you're doing your steps under the version of concepting as your main grouping. So just FYI, if you get a message like that, check what you have your plan over here. You're going to have another tab that has your track budgets. Another thing the system will do is auto ID your task ID, which is required. And sometimes you may have, some teams have turned it off, and then you're going to have to always know what task ID is it on, and that's under the different, oh, I saw it under the other. Mine is already created, so it's already grayed out. But if you have to manually fix it, then it's going to be editable and something you have to do yourself. You can do that, but we like the auto settings. So there we go. We've got our schedule. I know, don't judge me, it's kind of rough, but it is basically, we've got some creative concepting when we're going to be rolling up to days. Notice how the days are numbering at the summary task. And that internal review that's all by itself, yeah, it's out as far as it goes. That's just it's one day. And then we got another concepting task. And concepting, you see, it's 2 days, 2 meetings, 2 lines. How does 1 and 1 add up to 1? That is because right now the system, if we look at the Gantt chart, doesn't know how we're progressing. And I don't care about the dates, but notice everything is starting on day 1, today, the 3rd. If this was a real project, that would be kind of a problem. You wouldn't do all of these things in one day on this task. So we can address that, and it's going to be done through other pieces. So let me look at the first grouping here. In your and again, we're talking templates. We're wanting to know that we got a template with the normal workflows that you guys would need as a typical workflow. Again, remember that resume I thought about? Well, it's got the framework. It has my key summaries of things I need to fill in. The details may vary, but what are the main details? Name, address, blah, blah, blah. It's the same idea here. Except that these are tasks. These are things we're working on within the brochure that we're going to create. So how many days would it take for us to do a creative brief? Well, we filled in the idea of 2. It might take you 1, it might take you 5. It's kind of what is your need? What is a creative brief? You guys probably have them in your spec sheets in your projects, or you've got something outside of Workamajig. We also suggest that you put in an assignment. Now it's called assigned, and yet it's really, we're talking service, but it will ultimately become who's the person doing the service. On templates, we only care about the services, the roles that we need. Who's going to be in charge of that creative brief? Well, our account manager may need to be touched with some information, so they may need an hour on this task. Whereas my creative direction person, maybe my copy person, I don't know who does that. You know, maybe you have a brief writer. You can grab a new service, whichever services are needed. And mine is being a little snicky. So who needs to be part of that creative brief in services, and how much time do they need to work on that part of the task? So everyone may have a different workflow, and creative brief holding the majority of the work on this. So each has their accountability of hours. And now that I've opened this big screen, I also see duration, because we said it was a 2-day task. 2 days can be 2 days for 30 minutes at a shot, maybe 15 minutes at a shot, but it takes 2 days to get this task done. Typically, that's what we're looking at. So that's what we see, and I'm going to hit save as I think about it. So when you have some things already in there, you can see that, hey, do I like it? Do I need to remove something? You can remove if you find that it's already been added and you don't need that. This task was set as a default to 1 day. Of course, if we're doing the kickoff meeting, that's all we need. And by the way, a kickoff meeting may be an hour, might be 2. So what is your normal? Well, that's what you do in the allocated hours, and what services need to be invited. Oops, on this one. And same thing with a research task. Well, that one was easy. I'm going to use my service for research. No one else is needed. And by the way, they need 4 days to do that all in. And then I purposefully left internal review blank. So let's add it now. Quick and easy. Remember, just grab your service. People sometimes say we are a small group. I just know who's going to do it, and I'm going to put their name there. You may do that if you like, but it is certainly going to be an area that you would have to update every time somebody either comes new into your office or leaves the workflow into another company. So leave it with just services, and you'll be much happier updating things along the way. Oh, sorry, I'm clicking off and did not mean to. Go back into schedule. I just wanted to point out, if we don't fill in the rest, you certainly don't have to. But again, I want to show you the goods and the bads of doing such. And so I'm going to leave these blanks, and for time's sake as well. So the idea, what is the name of the task? Is it part of a summary task or not? Is it a standalone? Do we need more? Do we need to push anything out in order to make it by itself, push it in? Do we want to even duplicate a task? I will do that through our next steps when we get into a road project. So the idea is, how many days does a project or task need? And let's look at creative concepting. We had 2 days on creative brief. If anyone's good at math, you're going to still go, what? And kickoff meeting is going to take 1 day. Research was 4 days. How does it in the heck does it still take 4 days? Well, it's because we haven't played with our predecessors. We did show, I guess it did an auto set with my predecessor. Kickoff meeting is happening after predecessor 2, which is really pointing out to the line. And that makes sense, maybe after the creative brief. But I got a lot more to fix. Now I can do it manually. I can say, well, research is going to wait, and it's going to do it after that one. But there's a real quick shortcut. And let me also click into the 3, because you might say it has to wait for both of those. So you can play with predecessors however you need them to work. But one quick waterfall of a project, if it says we got to do creative brief, then the kickoff, and then the research, and then we'll do the internal review with our team. I should have a client review probably in here, and then we can do whatever's coming next. That's kind of like a waterfall, and maybe it's just strictly one after the other. I recommend then you go to task, click the top box, and first of all, let me unlink and remove what has already been added. And if I hit save, and I'm going to now show off my Gantt view, everything is just defaulting to, it's a smart system, but it's not going to presume anything. So you've got to say, yep, I want it to follow one after the other. I want to set my predecessors right in a row, and I can link the whole project together, or the full task together, lickety split. And by the way, they're based off of those days of duration. So I'm going to make sure you see that. If I want research to be 7 days, well, I'm going to click and put 7 days duration, and you see it's already auto updating when the internal review could happen after we've done our research. I know my task names are screwy. But you get the idea. Workamajig was first being called Workamajig because that really is the magic behind the screen. We do not want you to do any clicking into plan. We don't want you to, wherever you see it, when you see the word plan, in fact, we take it off of the grid because we don't want you worrying about the plan of the actual dates in a template. It works off of the days. So look at creative concepting now. Internal review still at 1 day, and then concepting we didn't touch much, but now it is 1 + 1 because of one meeting, the next one production. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And again, just as simply, if things are messed up, you can unlink and try it again, or go in and do it individually. All right, we are going to move on, but I'm going to take a breather for a moment. I see a couple more questions have come through. How do you make a project as a favorite? We did that, and we on the holidays blocked in the Gantt. How do I get those to appear? I thank you, anonymous attendee. Thank you much, because that is important, and I do want to get to that. We have 20 minutes left. I'm going to show you. If I don't get there, please remind us by sending that question to support@workamajig.com. It's easy to tell you, but it does take a few minutes to go over. It's going to be off of your calendar. And by the way, you can subscribe to your Outlook calendar and get those holidays to move over. So all's a good answer, a good info in that one question that I want to move past for the moment. Sorry about that, but it is going to be doable. If you can't put in holidays, your admins can. Kevin's asking, how are you getting the numbers next to the assigned services? Oh, ours list each one individually with commas between, not grouped. Oh, I think, Kevin, that sounds like you got the individual tasks going on. So if I want to insert right now, I'm going to say, this is a standalone, whatever it might be. And it could be, this is day 1, and then my next task will be another standalone 2. I'm just being very, very direct here in that they are not grouped at all, like you see under the phases that I created up above. Not necessary to have phases. I showed you a couple examples on templates. Some were just single lines, like you, I think, were describing. I hope, Kevin, that was right. And then otherwise, you might need to make them with subtask, and that's the moving a task in underneath something above it. Okay, so again, more questions that you may have will be easy also to review after our call here. And then are tasks only created through templates? No, absolutely not, Brooke, but this is our best practice example, and I'll show you why. We want to have, if I didn't say it at the front end, we want it to be with Workamajig. We don't want you working at Workamajig, meaning working to get Workamajig to work for you. We want Workamajig to do the work for you as much as possible. Those best workflows we kind of really hammered on our template today, because if we have a good standing template or 2 or 5, it will hopefully help you start your next project for that type very quick and easy, much easier otherwise. Otherwise, we're going to do all these steps every time we open a project. Kevin's asking, not the task to service. Oh, okay. Sorry, Kevin. Thank you for that clarification. He was asking not about standalones. He was asking, oh, let me get this moving, and then I can go back to where I was looking for. We'll look at that in a moment. You may just see, you're saying you don't see the numbers next to my services with, if I have actually allocated, and I'll tell you in our next step here, you're going to see the benefits of the work in the template that we've done. We've decided what services are needed. If we don't have any time here, let me remove these very quickly, or just a few of them. If I don't put in any allocated, I might just get service, comma, service, comma, service, comma. But if we have allocated hours, you're going to see what you see above. And by the way, when you get there, it's going to also save you the project starting time. So you don't have to do all this fuss every time you start a project. So we think this these first few rows here are good examples of a solid template, not one finished here yet. It's not finished, but you can come back to it. Make this one inactive if it's not the one you want to use or it's not ready yet, because you know how you get pulled away in a lot of different directions. If you've created a project template, it will be here and you can look for it even by starting a search. Okay. Oh, here's the one I just started. So template ID is unique. Template name is going to give what type of project it might be, because we don't necessarily see a project type when we go to start a project. All right, I'll show you what I mean by that. All right, moving on. Our time is getting short, so I'm going to move quickly here, and that's why I wanted to kind of come back and around on the calendar holidays, because that will divert us from creating a project. I'm back on my project manager bubble in projects. I'm going to divert over here to the PM dashboard because we've talked about those types. I want to show you that this is a quick report, and why do we care about types? Again, it might be what kind of summaries do we want to report on, and here I've got a review already of my completed projects that I've done by type. These seem to be the ones I do the most of since I'm searching for everything in my system. You can search for the month, the today, the month to date, the year, last year, whatever kind of reporting. Your managers, your head of company love this report. You guys don't have to work at this report other than doing the standards that we're talking about. If you want to track and show hours by project type, you've got that quickly at hand. Look at the project type I do. Look at that. No project type. Never got picked. So that may be a big bucket. And then here you are, hours by client. So know that that's what this is about. Your view may vary, and mine even has down to the project details in here. So if you want more help on how to modify this, that will be a follow-up call to your email to your account manager. Hey, how do I get that project schedule PM dashboard to show up like it does? All right, going back into projects, we're going to start either this plus because I'm on the projects page. Certainly can start a project here. And if not on this page, you certainly can find the plus up there, always at the top. In this case, you've got to figure out, I'm going to start a project, so I got to go to project manager projects. So I'm going to go all the way down and pick the project. Either one will get you at a project in here real quickly. All right, client is always required when you're doing a project. So what's the client name? You should already have it in the system. If there's a contact, they drop in. You might need a different contact. And if there's another one added, you can choose who should be your primary contact on the project. A required is going to be a project name. What do you want to call this? And I'm going to call this the Panda Bear Challenge. I found that there really is such a thing up in Scotland. So anyway, my Panda Bear wanted to do some kind of promotion like that, and we're going to do the Panda Bear Challenge promotion for them. I'm going to copy from the template. And what template do you want to copy from? And I've got already a good working template. I'm actually going to probably pick one that has some other formats, and the one that might be my messy one I did today with you. And if it's, oh, that's not what I wanted, I guess it is what I was going to use. So I'm going to use this template. I could also change my mind before I hit save and pick the one we've worked on. Actually pick that one. And then the project type followed along with it, because it was in my template. I don't have to even worry about it. See, that is required now that my new setting is taking place. You may not have it required, and then you get a bucket of no project type showing in your reporting. You can change your account manager. It's defaulting to me because I'm the one starting the project. You can certainly choose somebody else. I have that extra new requirement for GL company. And there's my description if I want to use it. Start date's going to default to today's date. You can always say, well, we're not ready to start it today. We're going to start it next week. Certainly can change it to the next week or month ahead. Or maybe you forgot to start it and it should have started yesterday. But either way, keep whatever the starting date should be for your project. You promised your client you're getting it ready. Maybe you don't want it starting today, but the project status kind of helps with that as well. We really recommend you use a due date. Have you promised your client the due date of when you would get it to them by? You may have promised a date before the holidays really are done. So let's say the end of the week of the February 9th, or December 9th over there. Hopefully that gives me enough time, and Thanksgiving is going to block out some of those days. So if I tried to pick it, if you've got them set, it would say, whoop, can't pick that. Like you cannot pick a weekend, it'll push it to the next working day. I'm going to move on. The project status, whatever your status default would be coming in, it's usually the one at the top. And I'm going to keep mine in estimating right now and keep and save. Now I did have custom fields. I did not make them required. I can fill those in later. Play with those if you need them. We can talk about on a support call how you can set up your own extra needed info. The extra needed info could show up in your custom fields like we mentioned, and I didn't fill them in, so there's nothing there. Project settings, I want to point to quickly. You saw it in your template. You can adjust if you've got a spelling error in there, if you need to change that account manager. Surely, hopefully your client is properly picked, because look at how the project number came in. The prefix for my calendar year, the client name, the project next number from the client, or global settings, whatever yours might say, and then maybe the project name itself. And then do you need to adjust your starting or completing date? Those would be some things you could still change or update, and here's that description field. So that's the project settings. If everything is great, that's great. I'm not going to go into detail, but notice that you can also make sure that your billing style for this project is like you want it. That does come from your client setting. So if you need more work on that, that's really getting into billing. So I'm going to move on. So we know that our settings are good. This green arrow check is really just, if you have to leave this now and come back, you're going to be able to say, hey, I've already done the settings. I'm good there. I want to lift the schedule. So let's look at that next. And there's the copy of what we were just so tirelessly working on. Now, I didn't have to do all that setup in my new project because it's already bringing it over. And what is this garbage? I don't need this. Maybe it's good garbage, but if you don't need something, you certainly can delete it. So let's start with that. You can certainly add more. Somebody asked, can I do a new task in a project? Absolutely. Insert row, whatever you need to, one at a time. Or I click a lot, so I'm going to save a lot. Clicking does make it think you're trying to do stuff, so I don't want to make it confused. So do I want to use that template option again, copy from other templates? Look at these boxes up at the top. There's my Gantt chart. It's already kind of pre-populating, but right next to that is the show templates. And then it's just defaulted to banner, but I can pre-pick another one. So if I want to go to logo or anything else that I know has what I need, I certainly can pick that new template and continue to drag over. I didn't get production, so let me drag over production. Now notice when I drag, it's going to be pushed under concepting, and I don't want it to do that. So it's hard at the bottom, so I'm going to have to go to the top, and I can grab it there. And is it out of order? Well, then maybe now I can drag it where I want it. And it still wants to pop it. You know what it's doing? Wants to pop it under concepting's pushed in task. And so I'd have to fuss with that, and I don't want to spend time with that. But again, remember, if anything gets pushed under out artificially, you can push it out. So work with that. Now production is here. How does my Gantt chart start looking? It's going to become too robust here. It's all messed up, right? I've been dragging things around. Remember, you can simply just either reset all of them or reset what you need to reset. But I'm going to do a quick easy. So I'm going to unlink, and I'm going to make sure to get this looking proper. And already I'm seeing a workflow, and I'm seeing a plan complete, even all the way down to the production task of, if everything stays the same, it should be done easily before the end of October. And how I know that is from all of the durations and the predecessors already predicting when your schedule will be done. Now, if I get rid of my, what can I get rid of? My views are getting tired and full. We have a big, long, nice, quick view at the top here where I can see those assignments. I have numbers next to them. Those are the allocated. If I don't, then they're just assignments, but maybe no allocations. But by the way, now we're ready to get our team in there. We're also making sure that everything's in red. If I had some, not in red, I'm thinking red because I'm going to show you that. If I have everything in green, I'm good to go. But if I had some crazy number in this one, just to make it be bad, oh, it's a big bad. I'm going to go way out just to show you that if you've got problems that you've copied over from your template and it needed 45 days for whatever reason, you're going to see, oh, the system's telling you there's some trouble with either your finished complete by date or a task needs to be adjusted. Maybe 45 was never intended. 5 was really what you wanted. So just know that the system, if you're working with the days, or you call it duration if you're looking at the detail, is going to help you predict when it should be done by. Because also everything is going to default to as soon as possible. You can, like in a case of a meeting, hey, a meeting has to happen by that due date. I don't want it to start me later, and it won't start me sooner. I'm going to say must start on as my constraint. That will lock it down for you, and it will pre-pick, and you go, okay, we can do the 25th or we can't. I'm going to push it out. I have certainly enough room, and I can push it out and maybe make it the 8th of November. I'm going to hit the save. You never saw me touch the calendar dates themselves, because what that will do, I got the must start on, and then I get to pick my date, and that does it very, very precisely. And I'm going to hit the save. Now it did adjust. Then the following task would start on the 9th if we're ready to go, and we keep trudging on. So I say stay away from these calendar dates, because let me just show you. If I go into the last task and I hit the plan, watch my predecessor changes, and you may not even realize it. And you go, why is it doing what it's doing? And then it says, oh, start no earlier. It does give you a blue flash warning, but it was quick and I couldn't even read it, and you might not even see it. So if you don't see it and you've done something like that, you may want to make sure that you see it on your screen up here so you can see, why is it funky? Why is it not right? Why is it saying the 15th? Well, it's because you picked a constraint, and it's okay if you need it. We just want you to know about that. And our time is coming way close to the end. So there's more to show. I'm going to leave my constraint there. Maybe production does have to wait. Maybe they're out of office. Don't start it any earlier would mean don't start it any sooner than the 15th. And that just, there's a whole page on our constraints. You can see which ones would work for you. If you're fixing a constraint on every single task, you're trying to work the system, and you're welcome to do it, but let the magic work for you by working on the day's duration of what you expect the project will take. And I'm going to also give you a secret. If you've got a great looking schedule, maybe I still need to schedule a few people or services, but I know the schedule is what I want, and we're way ahead of schedule, and I'm happy. I'm going to now click on more, and I'm going to set baseline. And all it does is does like a snapshot in time of what your project looked like when you first pushed go. Let's get started, gang, because the plan will shift. Like you saw, when my days don't take 7 days, but they only take 5, the system will then say, well, we get done on Friday instead of on Monday, and it'll auto adjust for you. You've got a 24/7 traffic manager within Workamajig with the way it works for you with best practices. So if you're setting a bunch of constraints, then you've fired that automatic part and you're doing it yourself. Okay, one more piece that I want to really get to for you today. We've done schedule. We haven't talked about the estimates and team. Estimates, good news here. We've already done the estimate. You say, I didn't see you do the estimate. Yes, you did. I did the estimate when I did the schedule, and I copied it actually from the template. So I didn't even have to adjust, but you could have gone back to that schedule, add more hours, add more services, remove some. You could have adjusted it because we know templates will not be perfect. Now you know you've adjusted that schedule if you need it. And we're going to go into the estimate, and we're going to just go right into auto pull for quick, easy. And we're going to pull from the schedule. The labor from the schedule was already figured out. We thought we needed 4 hours of account management, some consulting, some direction, creative direction. You see all the hours that were predetermined in the schedule. Already did a benchmark of it. You're happy with the schedule, and that gave you an estimate of gross for labor. You can also quickly add in something for expenses, quick and easy. Just, what is the item? Well, I may be doing some iStock photos, or, what is the item has to be in your section. Some photography, whatever. We pick a task if you like to get reporting all the way down to the task level. You don't have to have your vendor right now, but what is the item that you're trying to quote out? If you need some photography, are you buying a few stock photography pieces or whatever? What's your basic unit cost? You might already know that. Is it 2,000 to whatever, and what is that amount? And you can put in any number of lines here. Are you needing printing, etc.? And so once you've got your expenses of a whole $10, you've got your adjusted, I love round numbers, there we go. We got our estimate ready to go, and I can, if I've adjusted my schedule, even re-pull it from the schedule once again. But otherwise you're happy with it, you're thinking it's ready for the client. Well, the approval would mean it's ready to go to the client, or they've approved it. So you can go to print. Now your estimate settings will pre-pick or should pre-pick your template. If you don't have that at your client level, which I apparently did not, you need to pick it now. And I'm going to go ahead and pick summary, and I'm going to hit save, and then I can print this out very quickly to a PDF version and send it off to my client for them to give me the thumbs up. I didn't get a good logo, but you can modify these in all kinds of ways. I will show you where that setting is later, but that's what that one picked. You need a different format. Go back to estimate settings and pre-pick a different one. Even our multitude of layout options. Okay, so if you don't get what you need in the basics, we have more to choose from. And then they sign off, they say, yay, I love it, let's do it. And you want to be able to approve it, or you might see submit for approval. And this is just so that we have a working budget on the project. You might need more estimates. Maybe this one gets changed, during the way, and you might need to then add what we call a change order, do the same kind of thing, do a change order, any added changes, either more hours, less hours, will be able to, once approved, affect your schedule, give you a total estimate. I'm not going to save this one. All right, we have our approved estimate. So guess what we also have? We have a budget. And I'm going to click on there quickly, and I wanted to show you some existing history. So anyone who wants to stay on here is welcome to, and my screen is just taking its time. But if you don't have an approved estimate, you won't have budget. Now there are 3 or 4 tabs here. This one would show you the labor if you want to show it, any expenses, any type items going on. And notice that my expense is showing up funny. I don't know what happened. But if your budget is approved and working for you, you should be able to see things the way you want it. Expenses, if they're not going in by task, they're going to show up here by just a no task. Here it is, no task. But here it was, oh, I didn't know what happened to my $10. I want to get that fixed. But anyway, there's your budget. Without that approved, it will not be anything. We need to change our status to production. But before I do that, we can't start it without a team. So lastly, we want to, now that we know we have a go from my client, we need a team. I'm only one on here because I'm the one who opened the project. That's my default settings. Yours may vary. It may be a pre-picked account manager by the client settings, but who else do we need? So we certainly should be able to go up and add project team and under staff and go to pre-picking anyone that you need to add here. So I'm just going to grab a few names. Certainly, your names should be your active users. And if you need somebody other than your active staff, then you've got your toggle up here for contacts or client contacts. You may have a preset of a team. And I just have a quick one. I've already probably grabbed my whole team. Otherwise, their names would have shown here. But otherwise, you've grabbed people in there showing up here. Their default service should come along with them for good default settings. Again, what's your best practices? You don't have to even think about what do they do, what kind of work. Now, the services that we have in our estimate are showing up here. And I need to be sure we've got them covered. And if not, if somebody doesn't have a service covered in here, like if I didn't add freelancer, let me just remove his service, for example, it may show up in red. And unless I already got somebody else, so that when we are missing somebody on the team for a service that's not already in our team assignment, it will show, hey, there's an available service you need, and there's some others. So what can we add? So add in the additional. You're ready to do an auto assign. This is beautiful, but before I do it, one more minute. Thank you for hanging on. Here is my finished project, right? My schedule. I've got my details over here that I can look at as I go down the line. Nobody's assigned. Now I can pre-pick somebody, and I should have done that first. I could do it one at a time and go, who's now going to be my creative direction? But instead of that, I'm going to shortcut. Again, I'm busy. There's a whole bunch of quick shorts you can do within the schedule, but I love the team part of it, especially when we have an approved estimate. We can push with the auto assign, read the small text there, but basically it's going to push your team based on their services to any unassigned scheduled tasks. So I'm going to say, yeah, do it for me. Now, if there's anyone with two of the same service, I don't think I do have that example. If you had two art direction people, it would split their time. So be aware of how this works. Practice first. You don't want to have a mess on your hands, but it's a lovely thing when it works and you know what you're doing. So I said, just push it to schedule. And now look what my day is ready to go. It took me more time to talk about it than it did. And you go, I don't see a change. Well, it's because I got a toggle down. You will see names are added. But if I'm missing a schedule, someone on a schedule, on a service, they didn't get dropped in. I get freelancer there and I'm there. I'm missing some services. So I need to go back in and I can either relabel it, or maybe I need more people, or I can team up with my team and give brand consulting to another and double up on what's needed so that everybody is got what they need. Okay, I think my estimate didn't get approved because there's something that should have shown up in red for those that weren't assigned. But anyway, your mileage will vary. And is it approved? Entered, approved, change order, no, estimate total. I think I did. No, I didn't. See what's different if you don't follow through. Some of the team things that I did. Now, you didn't have to have an approved estimate, but man, it would have made my team a little faster to do, because see what's missing. I needed to give my people some other pieces that I wasn't even aware of. And so now when I'm going to leave whatever I need to leave and auto assign, it'll fill in those missing pieces. When I go too fast, I've missed a save. That's what happened. Okay, team. What I didn't do any more of, I think I've covered everything other than we do need to put it into active status. We've got my team ready to roll. Let's change it to in production. It will now show up over here in projects. So if I go to put in Bear County or whatever, I'll see any of those new ones. In fact, even the brand new one, that Panda Bear Challenge, all ready to start. I'm going to really definitely want you to know about how to close tasks, how to manage those. That's into your next steps. This was really today how to get that project open, how to get it managed, how to get it working. You will find all of your management of the project here on your Today PM page. What's going on, what are some unapproved things you might need to take care of, what are some open tasks that need to be dealt with, and activities you might have given. Maybe I just want to go look at all projects, not just active projects. That's right at the views that you have here. And I might want to go right to my inactive projects, or I don't even know if it's active. I can go to all projects and use my quick filter here to pick either a project number or a client name. If I click on the hamburger, you'll see all the filters, and I can certainly just say active right here, or get my, client ID picked and pick whatever. Okay, so you find what you need and you can go and review it from here. So you won't have to keep everything active all the time because you've got quick access to views. Any questions I want to leave you with? Holidays, I'm sorry about that. How are we getting the numbers? We got Kevin. Are the tasks only created through template? You saw how I added them just on the fly. Kevin, not yeah, we got your clarification. Thanks. That's it. And is there a way to find this, the show template drop down to only templates? Ours also shows active projects. Yes, Kevin, it will show active projects. You can copy from an active project in that template field. I think it's a bad idea, but sometimes, I say sometimes with quotes, it's a good idea to copy from a project because it was perfect. You want to recreate it, but you need to know if you copy from a project, you will copy over some headaches like those constraints. Do send that as a request or a question to your account manager, because if it's a problem and people are just always copying from projects and forgetting about our wonderful templates, is there a way to turn that off? And I can't recall if there is a way right now, but at least it could be an enhancement down the road, I wonder. And then lastly, I'm thinking you didn't see 10 because you didn't approve the estimate. You win the bell. And yes, you were right. I had not approved that estimate, and I didn't know that till the end of our call. I got through all our questions, but I know there could be more. And I hope today was informative for you. And I'm going to go back to our help guide. Again, just simply support.workamajig.com. You don't have to be logged in to get here. Notice that the user role, I tend to forget about it. You will find Project Manager right here and tons of stuff, including a 5-minute or less video of just what we kind of talked about today. 5 minutes or less, it can be kind of a quick overview. And certainly the different areas of the system, all related just on project managers. You already know about our webinars. We will post the recording of today's webinar back here on the 22. And we'll still be in the upcoming list for a while, but in a week or two, you should see it as part of those that have already been recorded. So you can review it or share it with others. Like, hey, I can't remember all this. Let's review this together, and you can slow it down, go through what we've talked about, and then send and look for maybe the advanced type of workflows that we have either already done or will be doing in upcomings. I always say even go back to last year's because they're not that old, even though they sound it. The 21 is already in history. They can have some good recordings there. All right, guys, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Give us any feedback. If you have more questions, we'll certainly answer it at support.workamajig.com. Take care.